It's never too early to learn how to take care of yourself and make healthy choices. Ahead, I'll talk with Lizzy Rockwell about taking care of you, a kid's guide to personal hygiene. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and welcome to the Kids Bookshelf. Lizzy Rockwell is the author and illustrator of over 25 children's books. Her previous books include Plants Feed Me, Good Enough to Eat, a kid's guide to food and nutrition, and The Busy Body Book, a kid's guide to fitness, just to name a few. She joins us to talk about taking care of you, a kid's guide to personal hygiene. Lizzy, welcome to the Kids Bookshelf.
Thank you, Dan, for having me. I'm very excited to be on your channel, your YouTube and your radio show. It's really wonderful the way you promote books. I'm a fan.
Well, thank you very much for that. This is another in sort of your kids' books that are explainers in different topics, health-related, etc. So tell us kind of about this little series you have going and how this book fits into it.
Oh, that's a great question, because the first book I ever wrote was called Good Enough to Eat, a kid's guide to food and nutrition. And it was a big learning curve for me because I was an illustrator. I had never written anything. Took about 5 years to really get it in shape. So I kind of call it my master's degree in children's literature. But it's still going strong 25 years later. And it was the first book to sort of talk about nutrition in the way we would talk to grown-ups about nutrition, but in children's language. I don't put faces on carrots. They're real foods, real children, real science, but presented in a way that they end up thinking it was their idea to eat more vegetables. And so then that followed with the Busybody book, A Kid's Guide to Fitness, which was about how your body uses all those foods and the ways you keep your body being its best at peak performance. And again, I appeal to their vanity, their egotism, if I'm honest. Aren't you amazing? Don't you want to be the best you can be? And it turns out it's a tone of voice they're very comfortable with hearing. There's never a scold. It's always like, well, obviously you would want to do these things, right? And so not long after the Busybody book came out, I did have the idea that we should do a hygiene book, because I had covered the major body systems that are inside your body. But I had not talked about the body systems that we can see and that are actually very important to take care of every day. Your skin, your hair, your teeth, protection from germs, your fingernails, your toenails. So because it's got sort of a lot of what we might call icky or embarrassing content, I need the tone to be really friendly, really matter of fact, and to always be giving the child my respect and inviting them to be participants in caring for themselves.
And for what age of child do you have in mind for the book?
I think you could start with this book when someone was 2. And then take it into second grade. Its sweet spot is probably 4 to 6. Those are the years that we're really instilling independence in our kids. And my grandson is turning 5 in July. And so I've been watching this, with wonder from a distance, like, oh my gosh, how did I convey all those skills and, important messages when my kids were growing up? You have a little more space to notice it with a grandchild. They are asked to wash their hands, brush their teeth, get dressed, which isn't in the book, but they are constantly being asked to take care of themselves, because that's a big transition from being a baby, a helpless baby, to being a kid who, gets herself dressed and maybe makes her own lunch and, knows to brush her teeth. So they're big training years. And we have really wonderful books about hygiene and self-care for the tween reader. because they're making another big transition into puberty, and their body's changing in all sorts of ways, and their need for privacy is becoming much more acute. So I feel like those books that were so helpful to my kids and other kids that came after my kids um, needed a counterpart. They needed a partner for the earlier years. So this book is about self-care for young children. But they are, as I said, they are constantly asked to do these things, but they don't always know why. Why do I brush my teeth? It seems so obvious to us, but when you're 3, the fact that cavities can form in your teeth, that's like pretty complicated science. So it's not natural to you. Just as eating fruits and vegetables over cupcakes, well, why? They're both food. This one actually tastes better, so I kind of prefer the cupcake. Um, so we want to tell them why, and I really respect children, and I know they can handle it. They want to know why. And then they want to tell you what to do. They want to boss you around and tell you to, cough into your elbow or brush your teeth. So that's the goal.
To give us a taste of this book, would you read a small portion of it for us so people will have a good idea of what they're going to find here?
As I said, we do skin, hair, teeth, nails, and germ care. So I'm going to read a page from the hair section. Hair was really fun to include, and it's sort of the last part of the messages I'm giving, because kids don't mind thinking about their hair. They're very proud of their hair, and so we end up having 3 spreads devoted to hair. This is one of them. It says, "The hair on your head is a special part of what makes you, you. Hair keeps your head warm on a cold day and cool on a hot day. It protects your skin from sunburn. The follicles inside your skin hold hairs in place. Depending on the shape of the follicle, hair will grow straight, wavy, or curly. Just like your skin, hair color is decided by melanin. Hair comes in shades of red, blonde, brown, and black. Hair can turn gray or white as people get older."
I also wanted to point out in the back matter of the book, you have some general health tips. You also have a glossary and more. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, back matter is a great opportunity to include things that might sort of bog down your narrative text as you're going along. So we would use captions around the illustrations so that we could also lighten up the body text with more information that you don't have to read as you're reading it through. But as you go deeper into it, spend more time with it, you can find those extra bits. And then the back matter is just a great opportunity to reinforce with a glossary of terms. We introduce a lot of terms in this book. Follicle, probably the first time a kid is going to hear the word follicle. And then we felt it was very important to put this book in the context of general health and well-being. So even though it's not a book about nutrition, we talk about to support your immune system, which I call your body's superpower. You want to eat healthy foods. You want to rest. You want to express your emotions. You want to get plenty of exercise. So along with all these technical things we're talking about with, covering your mouth, throwing away your tissues, using a Band-Aid, not picking your scabs, brushing your teeth. There are other general things you can do to stay healthy and give your body every opportunity to heal on its own, and to fight off the infection before it comes into your body. So yeah, we felt the back matter is pretty packed with info. So it was definitely space well used. And Christy Ottaviano helped me a lot to make sure the back matter was, doing the work we needed it to do. And again, the back matter is also a really helpful place for the grown-up reader to, we have a couple of websites we recommend for parents to follow up with more information. And, and those guidelines, they're for kids about rest and emotional expressiveness and good nutrition. They're for kids, but they're very much for the grownups, caring for those kids. And on that note, I also just want to say that this book is very much about being loved. Because when a parent is getting their child to brush their teeth or comb their hair or, wash their hands, it can feel negative. But I'm trying to point out in this book that it is an essential form of love, that parents want to take care of their children, teachers want to take care of their children in their classes, children, want to take care of each other by not passing germs. We find out that we can care for everybody. So taking care of you is the title, but it's really taking care of all of us and being taken care of. So there's a strong emotional component to this book. I think it's not just science. Science always has a strong emotional component, in my opinion, but there's a social emotional component to this book that is beyond the biology of the science.
And this book is Taking Care of You by Lizzy Rockwell. And Lizzy, before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about your background, because your parents were book authors as well. What was it like kind of growing up in the environment, and when did you decide that you also wanted to pursue that as a career?
Well, that is a big question, but we'll touch on it. It was amazing to grow up with parents who you get to see their job happening every day. So my parents both worked in the house. They had a studio, kind of like the room I'm sitting in here, with a Luxo lamp and paints and brushes and, special tools. And I could see them work. So it wasn't mandatory that you grew up there and became a children's book author and illustrator. My brother and sister did not, but very creative in their own way. But I just, got out of college and realized I love to draw. I'm a good artist. What would be a job, that I could do with this? And like, oh, well, I did notice my parents my whole life, working as illustrators. And so I went back to art school and continued to study illustration and really learn that trade. And then it was actually when my father passed away, I was in my 20s, and he and my mom were going to do one of the many books they did together in their incredible career together, called Apples and Pumpkins. And my father did not live long enough to illustrate it. So it was the first book I illustrated, and it began a long collaboration with my mom. And my father had been my mentor when I was in art school. He'd also been an art director along with being an illustrator. He had a long career in advertising as an art director. So he was a terrific mentor to artists, me included. And so I had gotten that wonderful foundation from my dad, and then went on to work with my mom for the next 20 years, making books together. And she just, I'm a little biased, but she was one of the greatest voices for a young child. She had absolutely no difficulty speaking to a very young child with total respect, with total appreciation for their point of view, that the entire world is new and wondrous to me. And so a book about the toolbox, or a book about trucks, or, they together and apart, they did books about all sorts of real world things. But my mother also had the capacity to write about Greek mythology and retell folk tales and invent her own fairy tales. And so and then later did biographies and she wrote a book about Brunelleschi, in the 70s. She was an incredible creative force. And I'm just so lucky that I got to have that sort of foundation to the work that I went on to do. I ended up being a different voice, having a different emphasis in the work that I've done as an author on my own. So, those two elements were very important, and they gave me the freedom to fly on my own. So, yes, thank you for asking about them.
Well, the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, as you well know in this industry, often there are writers and separate illustrators that sometimes never meet each other, never talk. It's all just done through an editor. But you have the opportunity to be both. You're both author and illustrator. So do you feel like that gives you a sort of a creative advantage in making your books?
Oh yeah, you have, complete control. Well, you're still partners with your team at the publishing company. But I spent so much time as an illustrator for other people's text, for my mom and for other authors that I did not ever meet, that I didn't know, and the editor and art director were the conduit between us. And I also did a lot of freelance illustration work for textbooks for a game company called Ebu. So I'm a good assignment getter, and I'm a good problem solver, and I actually really like that role. It took a while to gain confidence as a writer, but I really do love it. And you use the word that I often use to describe my skill as a writer. I'm a good explainer. And I think that is a really important kind of writing. And especially when you're helping kids make their way through the world, so much needs to be explained. So I love that I can just pick topics that interest me. I'm very protective of children, my own, my grandson, and the entire world's children. So I very much want to make books that help them feel strong and brave and self-aware and integrated into their community and their family, and their social network. So if I was just writing books, illustrating books for my mom, it would never have occurred to her to do a book about personal hygiene. I mean, she took perfectly good care of us as children, but that would not interest her at all. So I need to do books that interest me, and that I feel are helping children at large, you know, find their way in this big, crazy world, because it's a lot. But they're so open, they're so ready to learn. They're so loving. They're so open-minded, and they really care a lot about themselves. They really do want to be their best. And if they're not sure they want to be their best, then books are even more important to them to help them, feel validated in that way. Yeah, and I like writing because I can keep the words pretty minimal, by knowing what the picture will do. So I often wonder, how do writers who aren't illustrators write a picture book? It just, how would you know what part of that world will be drawn? My mother was both, so she could write for other illustrators, knowing their strengths as well. Because she was an illustrator, she always thought, is there a picture to go with these words? I don't have to make it, but do these words have a picture that can go with them? So I learned a lot from her about writing with the knowledge that your imagery is going to support And there's so much you don't have to say because there it is. And kids, when I visit schools and I'm seeing older kids, like second graders who are transitioning to chapter books, they're always like, "Are you going to write a chapter book?" I'm like, I could never write a chapter book. I mean, never say never, but I just love what pictures can do, and how much emotion and context and world building you can do with the pictures. So yeah, it's fun to do both.
Well, congratulations on having this book out in the world. What's next for you?
I have a book on the drawing table that is a sequel to my book about emotions called How Do You Feel? And that is a book where the pictures do really heavy lifting. There's almost no words in it. And this book is called How Do You Feel at School? And it'll be published by Holiday House in 2027. And it's a lot of feelings, a lot of little people with big feelings. So very challenging, but very, very gratifying.
Well, this current picture book is Taking Care of You, A Kid's Guide to Personal Hygiene by Lizzy Rockwell. Lizzy, thank you for talking with me today.
Thanks so much, Dan. Really appreciate it.
If you'd like to purchase Taking Care of You, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. Well, thank you for watching this edition of the Kids Bookshelf. I'm Dan Skinner. Until next time, keep sharing the gift of reading.